Okay, welcome back, everyone. I hope you've had a lovely lunch break. It's a shame we've not been able to meet up in the usual way, but hopefully soon, eh? So what I'd like to do is to hand you over to our next keynote, David Silke from Mitel. And David's going to look at the real future of work and the pandemic impact. So David, over to you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thanks a million for having me. It's great to be back. I think this is my third summit, so I'm going to reference just a presentation from last year in a moment. But it's a real honor to be here. I work in Mitel. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer, and we're going to try and tell just a little story around the things that we're seeing, the impacts of COVID, what we're hearing from customers and partners, and we'll try to be very open and honest just to give everybody a good sense of what we're seeing happening. But before I go there, just a little bit of background around myself. I live in Galway in Ireland on the west coast, and I've been working in IT telco for probably the last 20 odd years or so. I started in Nortel, based here in Galway, but running Europe and Asia marketing for Nortel up until around 2009. And then I joined a storage area networking IP company called Brocade. Was with them for a little over nearly 4 years, and I just mentioned that because Brocade went through a really interesting transformation, just as storage and IP was, certainly the storage was being virtualized, and try to marry networking and IP with storage area networking. So it gave me a really good insight into what was happening with virtualization and the cloud. And then I spent 5 years at Juniper Networks. I ran the EMEA marketing team, and then for a couple of years I was responsible for building the global demand center for Juniper, and then 2.5 years ago joined Mitel, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But the other picture I'll show you is, as I look out here on the left hand side, it's a church in a place called Clarenbridge, again just outside of Galway in Ireland. And I just show this picture because, a bit like everybody, for the last, oh my goodness, 7-8 months or so, this has been my view from work. Little did I realize, I think it was the 27th of February, we just finished up a Mitel event in Amsterdam for all of our European partners, and I was flying back into Dublin, and it was right before the Irish lockdown, which I believe was sometime in the middle of March. But this is the view outside of my office every day as I look at the church, and I get a constant reminder of the bells in the evening to keep me on time. Yeah, it's been a transformational experience. But a little bit about Mitel. We've been working with Britannic for quite a number of years, but Mitel primarily is responsible for communication and collaboration solutions, including applications, including how it is that we really drive the convergence of communications and collaboration. And we would be one of the world's biggest cloud companies when it comes to communication solutions. And you can just see some of the stats. And the reason that I show this is the company has been in existence for a little over 45 years, but is right now right in the middle of driving the transformation between on-premise into cloud communications. And I think we have a really good insight into some of the challenges that customers face as they're looking at that transformation. So a little bit about that in a few moments. But Mitel also very proud history of working with some of the highest performing organizations on the planet, frankly. In the UK, there's recognized names such as Liverpool Football Club. We're the global unified communications partner of Liverpool. We've been working with them very, very closely this year as they look at how do we get all of our staff working remotely, both in Anfield or in the headquarters. How can they maximize the Mitel communication solutions that they have to make that happen. And we were also responsible for, use the logo, the London series, which took place baseball in the Olympic Stadium last year in June between the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees. Mitel has been involved with Major League Baseball for a number of years as the overall unified communications partner of Major League Baseball. But one of the things we were most proud about was bringing that solution to life in the Olympic Stadium in June of 2019, where, you know, a lot of the dependency, the in-field communications was brought to life by Mitel. And unfortunately, we didn't have the chance to replicate that this year because of the pandemic. So it was really interesting. I was speaking with Jonathan right before we started the session, and I was really fortunate this time. It was November of last year to be in Mercedes World, and Jonathan and the team asked if Mitel would do a presentation around workplace modernization. And I said, look, we'd be delighted to. We have an opinion, and you know, very strong opinion in terms of what we've seen happening in the marketplace, and also what we've seen from our customers as they look at the transformation of their workplace and space. And again, the time of that was November 2019. And during that presentation, kind of spoke about a number of main points, but I'll share two slides from that deck because I think it's important, just fast forwarding to what we're seeing now. But we were really talking about the evolution of the workplace. We described the four epochs of change that we went through, whether that from steam power to mass production to really the automation of computers, and how that began to enable an automated workforce, which more and more has become an integration of cyber and physical. And we see that every single day when it comes to the Internet of Things, and how it is that we're bringing things to life as part of the web. And that fourth revolution was really created because of four things. It became real because of mobile, ubiquitous broadband, 4 and 5G, just allowing access to any place at any time. The second was compute access and the power of compute. You think about the power of your smartphone and what that can enable us to do at any time, just access information that we would never have thought about. The cloud became real in terms of the ability to host anything, data, applications in servers, so that you could access your information anytime, any place, using any device. And then a really evolution of artificial and machine intelligence in terms of the algorithms of learning, understanding how we can bring things to life in an automated fashion through the intelligence and artificial intelligence, and I tend to say marine intelligence, I mean machine intelligence. But the point of all of that was to, in November of last year, we were making predictions, looking at various different scenarios over the next 5 years in terms of predicting the number of automated phone calls or contact center queries that would be answered. We were predicting 85%. We made a prediction that 2% of workers would be working remotely full-time back in November of 2019. And then COVID happened. And to say that it was an overnight recalibration and shock is an understatement. And I'm not going to, sit here for the next 15 minutes or so to try to tell everybody about what happened with COVID and the challenges that each and every one of us are facing. But what I would like to do is just tell some insights and stories around some of the things that we as a company went through and what we feel is likely to happen over the next number of years. And the first response we had back in March, again, Mitel, we've almost 70 million users around the world. Hundreds and thousands of companies rely on our technology. We work with partners like Britannic, globally to really make sure that we understand the communications and collaboration challenges that these companies face as they drive their businesses. But we approached COVID and the overall response in 4 phases. And the first was the immediate reaction. So we understood that the customers and partners needed immediately to be able to remote work at scale. And our objective there was to make sure that we enable that to happen very, very quickly. And I would say that lots of things, lots of applications were used. The laptop and the mobile phone became the work equipment of choice very, very quickly. There was less focus probably initially on the likes of immediate collaboration and security and all of the other things that we've since got into. But that first reaction of moving individuals out of offices to home was the first thing that we did. The second was really around mitigation. How can we really work with customers to mitigate the financial impact of COVID in a very, very quick time frame? And we did that through a number of things like financial support, and we fast-tracked a solution called My Team Meetings, which is our video collaboration solution. So if you're a Mitel customer today using call control or communications, My Team Meetings is the video collaboration solution that fits on top of that. And we made that available immediately, even though it hadn't even been generally available back in March. And we also made it available free for a 6-month period, really just focused on mitigating the cost and making sure that people could get back working. And the third kind of phase then became around reassurance. So once people were working, once people had moved out of the offices back into home environments, what kind of reassurance could we provide as a company? And we did that primarily through sharing of experiences. So we did that socially. We spent a lot of time speaking to customers about the importance of customer experience, how it is that they could maintain communication with their customers at a really, really important time. And then we began the conversation around recovery. And recovery, look, I'd love to sit here on the middle of October as Ireland, where I live, faces a second lockdown and say that we are in that recovery mode, because frankly, we're not there. But we're spending a lot of time working with customers as they think about what happens next. How can I make sure that that I've got a really good understanding of the market, that I've got a real clear focus, and more importantly, that I've got a partner to work with that understands the challenges that I have faced and will face moving into the future. So those 4 phases were really, really important, because it drove us to a real clear understanding. And we term it the 4 C's, a real clear understanding of what enterprises, be they small, be they large, were having to deal with in a very, very quick period of time to move employees from one location to disparate locations all over the world. And those 4 things really lined up with the slide that we presented back in 2019, which was that integration of the kind of the 4th epoch. And the first was, the need to compute. So lots of us have laptops or iPads. That enabled us to be able to get online and have a conversation. But a lot of work had to happen in the background to make sure that became a secure solution, that became a reliable solution, that the right network was in place to make sure that was ready to go and facilitated that need. The second was the need to connect. And the need to connect could have been as simple as, I know I can work from home. I have the laptop, but my Wi-Fi, maybe it isn't good enough. And we spend a lot of time having to teach people about, well, how do I make the Wi-Fi signal better in my environment? How can I manage when I don't necessarily have the right Wi-Fi? Can I manage it over 4 or 5G for a period of time? But that need to connect became very, very important very, very quickly. And so did the need to communicate. And the need to communicate in multiple different ways. So we spent a lot of our lives either traveling or having face-to-face conversations. Audio was the conference communication of choice. And very, very quickly that changed, because we needed to communicate via video. We needed to have that interpersonal, as best as we could, experience with people. So that really strong need for a visual communication in addition to an audio communication was very important very quickly. And then the fourth was the need to collaborate. And the need to collaborate, again, you could break that down into a number of different ways, but you really need to think about it in terms of how can I share? How can I share information? How can I share emotion? That could be file sharing. It can be the sharing of a presentation online. It can be whiteboarding and being creative. And a lot of companies came to us and said, look, we need to make sure that not only do we have the ability to use video, but we also need to have the ability to whiteboard and be creative in a challenging environment. So the 4 C's were learnings for us as a company in terms of how do we respond back to our customers at a very, very important time. And then, you know, the novelty of some of the things that we had not even started taking for granted, but they became a necessity. And we've seen that each and every one of us in our day-to-day lives. You think about, I think it's some amazing stats here. For the first time in the last 6 months, 28% of people have used telemedicine. I instinctually would have thought that was higher, but it's not. The mobile ordering of 20% of people for the first time used mobile ordering. And I think it's important for us, as those of us who sit in technology or in communications or IT, we sometimes make assumptions that most of the demographic of people acts like us, and that couldn't be further from the case. I think it's an interesting statistic that over 90% of the workforce is deskless today. They're still out there doing logistical type work, transportation, retail, hospitality, those things. So very, very quickly, there was a movement into the use of mobility and remoteness to get things done. And also a dramatic increase over the past 6 months in things that some of us would have done, but exponentially grew in terms of the use of simple one, mobile payments. 18% increase in use. That will just continue to increase as people try to avoid the contact payment in any way, shape, or form. But the important thing for us that we found was that what was a novelty at one particular point became a necessity. And there was a really, salient moment that a number of us in Mitel had when we kind of came to an inflection point. And the inflection point was not COVID. The inflection point was not all of a sudden everybody has to work from home. And how do you enable that? The inflection point for us was it's no longer about the technology. And it made me think about, one of my favorite films, which is Back to the Future, where, an individual gets transferred from 1985 to 1955 and has the ability to see what happened 30 years ago and think, this is going to happen in 30 years' time. The analogy being that in a lot of cases, people like myself, even as recently as last November, would speak about technology in terms of this is something that will happen at some point. And what COVID forced was the technology was there. It was really about the use cases. And very, very quickly, the importance of understanding a need, the importance of understanding a use became the most important thing. And the inflection point was not about the technology itself. It was about the use case because the technology was there. So what are we seeing, and what is it likely to lead us to in the next, I can't time bound it, let's say in the immediate future? Well, first of all, the world has gone touchless and unfortunately has become more peopleless as we look for ways to avoid the interaction with others. We're seeing the first salad dispensers in terms of automated solutions or salad robots. The image on the right-hand side will become more and more ubiquitous as you look at robots that are doing the jobs that lots of humans used to do, whether that's security or whether it's greeting people as you walk into a hotel. And examples they're everywhere. We see them here in Ireland in terms of retailers going online, trying to figure out, from tomorrow as an example, a lot of these shops will close again. How can they maintain their business through an application and making sure that it's integrated into every single thing that they do? And if you go to a hotel today, the chances are that experience will be far less touchless than you ever had imagined. The other piece that's becoming really, really important is the integration of those experiences. And at the very end, I'll talk about the integration of the technology and how that piece is really, really important. But the integration of the automated experience, and as people-less and as frankly as sad as some of that can be, we also have a job when we're speaking to our customers is to talk about the consistency of that experience, the consistency of how you can make that as a positive experience as possible, whether that's your airline check-in, which will become automated completely, or it could be your favorite pastime, going out for a beer or a glass of wine. The more and more likelihood is you are going to be yourself controlling the interface of that. And the other dramatic thing, and each and every one of us are living case examples of this today, is that work has become a space. It's no longer a place. We're seeing, and we have seen over the last 6 to 7 months, the emergence of the hybrid worker in place, and we've spoken about that, where it's highly likely in the future, each and every one of us will have hybrid lives. So we may go to work on a Monday, we may work from home Tuesday, Wednesday, we may go to another location on a Thursday, back somewhere else on a Friday. The energy that we create through creativity will somehow have to be managed in a virtual world using communications and collaboration. And we may look for that, the chemistry of integration and that physical connectivity. If it does become limited, how do we use that at a particular safe point in time where you can really thrive on the interaction that we have with others? So we've seen just a tremendous fast forwarding of predictions that we were trying to make over the last 10 years that became real in a matter of months. And if you're listening and you're thinking about it from the enterprise point of view, certainly what we saw, and these are just some examples of some of the companies that we worked for, was an immediate adaptation of those 4 C's, the immediate need to try to figure out how do we communicate, how do we collaborate, how do we make sure that we've got that instantaneous way to do some of the most important things on the planet in terms of serving customers. And that was really, really important. The other piece to make it all happen was what was happening in the background and what were the decisions that were being made in relation to communications. And more importantly, as we look into the future in that hybrid workplace or workspace, and we as individuals are hybrid workers, the pieces that will be really, really important are the ability to have communications and collaboration in any environment across any device. And that may be a company that has physical on-premise communications call control today. They're trying to think, how do I get access to cloud-based applications? Because I need to have that agility and speed. I need to make sure that those applications that reside in the cloud are part of my physical infrastructure. And in Mitel, we do a lot of work on that space where we use an architecture called CloudLink, which really enables those customers who have on-site premise equipment today with a really strong need to have access to applications that are sitting in the cloud. And moving forward, the likes of Britannic and others will spend a huge amount of time focused on the customer need of driving that integration. And it's the exact same case scenario if that company has a fully cloud solution today. And more we're seeing that there has been a very, very significant acceleration of the adoption of cloud technology here in the UK. There was, it would have been fair to say that the US was ahead of that before COVID. But very, very quickly, the acceleration went from east to west in relation to the number of companies that were looking for full cloud solutions. They wanted the ability to turn on a communications option literally within minutes, have communications and collaboration integrated. And again, that's something that we as a company will spend a lot of time doing. The other piece that we'll see, not just on the actual communication equipment itself, will be the importance of the technology ecosystems. And by that I mean, you'll have companies like Mitel working with our partners around the world, thinking about the technology ecosystem that we can make sure that we have in place to do a couple of things, which is drive agility, drive speed, and more importantly, drive flexibility. We work very, very closely with the likes of Google Cloud Platform, Amazon Web Services to make sure that we've got ubiquitous hosting of cloud solutions. But the other thing that we will do, again, working with companies like Britannic, is taking a really strong look at the applications and technologies that a customer has in place today, and how do you look at the integration of those experiences. So if you went back to one of those other slides and you really try to drive to make sure that as we serve the customer moving forward, we're really focused on that integration of experiences, making sure that all of the technologies, all of the applications coexist and work together. Because frankly, as an enterprise, having that integration in place is going to be table stakes in terms of surviving. So to begin to wrap this up, we talked about the immediate change, the 4 stages that we as a company went through, the real needs that we're seeing from our customers as they're looking for first that survival, but then how do they become agile and successful in whatever this post or ongoing pandemic world that we live in. And the strong likelihood is that we're going to have a blended life for quite some time. I think it's really, really important to recognize the challenges that we as people and individuals face as we look at long lockdowns continuing to go on. As individuals, we look at offices not necessarily being available for us, and we're having to work in that hybrid environment between I got to be at home, I've got to be at work, I've got to blend the home and the work, and I also have to make sure that I blend the workspace and place, and do I have the tools to allow me to be as productive as I can be? Are they integrated so that I can be as collaborative and efficient as I need to be? But the other piece about having a blended life is the recognition of the people aspect. And again, that has been something that's been very, very strong for us as an organization, which is the recognition and understanding of boundaries. How far or how much can somebody do in a remote virtual session over hours and hours and hours? Yes, there's a critical need for communications and engagement, but there's also a critical need to recognize the thresholds that people face and being cognizant of that. And I do strongly think over time that technology and devices and applications will more and more reflect the integration of the physical and mental environment as we look after the total well-being of individuals that work for organizations. And as a final but really important piece, recognition of the importance of culture, recognition of the importance of listening, recognizing the importance of understanding. And if I could leave the audience with kind of 3 steps that anybody could take today, just based on what we as a company have faced over the last number of months working with organizations as they're challenged. The first is to listen to the employees, or your employees, and listen to your customers. I think for far too long, people like myself have talked about things that we think we might know. The important thing is to listen to the people who do know, because they're going to go through the challenges and real life scenarios that they're dealing with on a minute by minute basis, and hopefully they ask for your help. but they're certainly not going to get much help unless we take the time to listen. The second is, as an organization, driving a culture of partnership and understanding. It's just as important to think about the need of your customer. How will they continue to integrate and work with the products and the solutions that you sell? How can you drive that partnership when you think about all of the technologies that need to be pulled together and understand the complexities of that? And the third piece is, and I think it brings it all home to me, which is as customers look at this incredible challenge, doing their best that they can to prepare for flexibility, using the cloud-based solutions that offer agility and flexibility today. Because if you prepare for flexibility, it's likely to help you at least underpin some of the unknowns that we just simply don't know. And I think that's going to be one of the most important things moving forward, is really driving a culture of flexibility, listening, and help. So to Jonathan and the team, it's always a real pleasure to attend the Convergence Summit. As I said, this is my third time doing it. Little did I know last year when we talked about the prediction of the workplace modernization, that prediction, not only would it become true, would become a reality within a matter of months. So it's been a pleasure. I thank you for your time, and we'll be happy to address any questions. And just as a final comment, if you have the opportunity to visit the Mitel virtual stand, please do so. My colleagues are there. Would love to have a conversation with you as part of this fantastic event. So thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Really great presentation, very insightful. And boy, have we come through some changes in the last few months. And yeah, completely echo those thoughts. Flexibility, agility, and most definitely, listening to customers, listening to employees. So we're starting to hear terms around voice of the customer and voice of the employee, and I think it's going to be even more important moving forwards, so that we design the right technology platforms to underpin how we all need to operate into the future. So thank you very much. Do we have any questions for David at this point? If so, please add them to the chats. And whilst we wait for those coming in, I'd like to congratulate David for dealing with the video bomb that you had in between the presentation. I don't know if you noticed, but well done. You kept the task very well there.
That was funny. It worked out quite well. I was trying to figure out exactly what to do, Jonathan, and who could see what, but it was just best to keep going. Indeed,
yeah. So I can't see any questions popping in. So as I said before, if there's no questions, it's a sign of a good presenter covering off all those things that people are thinking about. But of course, if there are questions, please do pop them in the chat. We can deal with them after this session. Please do also take the time to attend the to attend the booths as well. You'll be able to engage with others that sit behind the company and get some good first-hand experience. Okay, I think that's it. We've got a few chats coming in, so people are saying great presentation, David. So that's good.
Okay, good. Well, and Jonathan, before we go, thanks again to you and Sheridan and the team. It's I love this summit. It's just been great over the last number of years. I know this year was always going to be challenging to continue it, but congratulations to you and the rest of the team for doing it. It's a really important event.
Thank you. And I think, hopefully what it does is it shows flexibility, innovation, and business continuity. The show must go on, right? And
absolutely. And you've kind of demonstrated a lot of the things that we spoke about, and having that continued flexibility and agility and listening to your customers is going to continue your success for years to come.
Thank you. Okay, so I think that's we've got one question there. Have Mitel been acting on the economics of change, i.e. the move from premise to the cloud? So probably a question around how you've been performing and managing this change from more traditional on-premise into the cloud.
Yeah, so Mitel, we would be one of the few companies that has, we've got an on-prem solution. We have a very strong cloud-based solution, both on the UCAAS side, but also for some of the enterprises that have more challenging solutions. It's a solution we call Flex. We have applications that reside both in the cloud, but also on-prem and can manage that hybrid environment. We're very, very keenly aware of the transition that's happening, not just in the UK, but in the European market in terms of the speed of cloud adoption. And that's going to be very important for us moving forward. So yeah, from the economics of the company, we have a massive customer base. We have a massive customer base that are looking to either continue the on-premise solution that they have today, or more and more working with us to make sure that they've either access to applications in the cloud, or they're moving their communication solution to the cloud. And in whichever one of those environments, we're perfectly capable of operating in that space.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions for David at this point? Okay, I think that's it. So, David, once again, thank you very much. And what we'll do is we'll have the next presentation starts at 1:45. So we've got 9 minutes to go and visit the booths. All right, I'll catch you later. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well done. Cheers. Bye-bye.